The wind howled through the desolate streets, carrying with it a biting chill that seeped through even the thickest of clothing. Snowflakes danced in the darkness, swirling under the dim glow of flickering streetlights. The city, usually alive with movement, lay still and frozen under the weight of winter's grasp. It was the kind of night where every sane person was bundled up indoors, seeking warmth and comfort, huddled beside fireplaces or wrapped in thick blankets, enjoying the security of their heated homes. But John was not indoors. He was out, trudging through the knee-high snow, his boots crunching with every step, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. His coat, though thick, did little to shield him from the relentless cold. He pulled it tighter around his body, shoving his gloved hands deep into his pockets, cursing himself for not taking a cab home instead of walking. The night was treacherous, and he wanted nothing more than to be inside, sipping hot cocoa, maybe watching a movie to distract himself from the loneliness that had crept into his life lately. The breakup had hit him harder than he cared to admit. 6 months had passed since Sarah walked out, taking with her the warmth and laughter that had once filled their home. The apartment felt too big now, too quiet, and John found himself spending more and more time at work, avoiding the emptiness that awaited him at home. As he turned the corner onto his street, his thoughts were interrupted by a faint sound, a whimper, barely audible over the wind. He stopped, straining to hear it again. There it was, soft and pitiful, coming from a heap of snow near the curb. John's heart clenched. Instinctively, he stepped closer, his pace quickening. As he drew near, his stomach twisted. A dog, lying motionless in the snow, barely alive. John hesitated for only a moment before kneeling beside the frail creature. The dog's fur, once perhaps a beautiful shade of brown or black, was now matted with ice, its body trembling violently. It was thin, too thin, ribs stark against its fragile frame, each breath labored and shallow. Snow had settled on its face, its muzzle nearly buried, and its eyes barely open, filled with something that struck John straight to his core. Sorrow, desperation, and something else, resignation. John's throat tightened. How long had this poor animal been out here? How had it survived at all in this bitter cold? He reached out, his gloved hand trembling as he brushed away the snow from the dog's fur. "Hey there, buddy," he murmured, his voice soft, gentle. The dog flinched at the touch but didn't move away. It was too weak to run, too exhausted to fight. John glanced around, his eyes scanning the empty street, the rows of darkened houses, the distant glow of a convenience store sign. No one was looking for this dog, no frantic owner calling its name, no footprints in the snow leading away from where it lay. Abandoned, the thought made John's blood boil. How could someone do this? How could they leave a helpless animal out here to die? Without another thought, he shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around the dog's frail body. The dog let out a soft, pitiful whimper, but didn't resist. The warmth of John's body must have been a stark contrast to the unbearable cold. "You're not dying tonight," John whispered, cradling the fragile creature against his chest. "I promise." John hurried home, his heart pounding as he carried the freezing dog inside. He pushed through the door, barely remembering to kick it shut behind him as he rushed to the fireplace. The warmth inside was immediate, a stark contrast to the merciless cold outside. Gently, he placed the dog on a thick pile of blankets near the fire, wrapping it tightly to keep in the heat. The dog's body was like ice beneath his touch, its breathing ragged and shallow. John knew he had to act fast. Grabbing a towel, he knelt beside the dog, gently drying its frozen, matted fur. The dog barely moved, its strength completely drained. Every few seconds, John would pause, watching, listening, making sure it was still breathing. He warmed some broth on the stove, bringing the cup back carefully, kneeling beside the animal once more. "Come on, buddy," he coaxed, dipping his fingers into the liquid and letting a few drops drip onto the dog's tongue. At first, there was no response. His heart clenched, fear creeping in. Then, a flicker of a tongue against the liquid, a weak swallow. Relief flooded through John, though he knew the fight wasn't over. Hours passed as he sat by the dog's side, speaking to him in soft tones, willing him to fight. The fire crackled beside them, casting a warm glow over the small, fragile creature. And then, as John brushed his fingers over the dog's neck, he felt something hidden beneath the ice and dirt. A collar. With careful fingers, he pulled back the frozen strands of fur to reveal the name engraved on the tag. Max. "Max," he whispered. The name felt significant, as if this dog had a story waiting to be told. Where had he come from? How had he ended up in the freezing cold? John didn't know, but what he did know was that he wasn't going to let Max die without a fight. Over the next few hours, Max began to stir. His tail gave the weakest of wags, and for the first time, John saw the glimmer of life return to his eyes. A surge of hope filled his chest. "That's it, Max. You're doing great. Just hang in there." John refused to leave Max's side, feeding him in small portions, rubbing warmth into his body, and speaking to him constantly. The bond between them grew stronger by the minute. By morning, Max had lifted his head slightly, watching John with tired but trusting eyes. It was the first time in who knew how long that Max felt safe. John knew he couldn't turn his back on him now. He spent the entire day researching how to care for a malnourished dog, buying proper food, and even preparing a comfortable bed next to the fireplace. For a brief moment, it seemed like Max was going to pull through. But then, as the night wore on, something changed. Max's breathing became labored, his body growing colder despite the warmth surrounding him. Panic surged through John as he tried to keep him comfortable, whispering words of reassurance. "Stay with me, buddy. You're safe now. Just hold on." But Max was slipping away. With a final, shuddering breath, he looked up at John, his eyes filled with something that looked like gratitude. And then he was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. John sat frozen, his hands trembling as he cradled Max's still body. He had tried so hard, but it wasn't enough. The house felt emptier than ever before. The warmth of the fire did nothing to soothe the cold that settled deep in John's chest. He spent the night beside Max, unable to bring himself to move him. He had saved Max from dying alone in the cold, but he hadn't been able to save his life. The next morning, John buried Max beneath the tall oak tree in his backyard. He carved his name into a wooden cross, pressing it into the frozen ground. The air was thick with unshed tears as he whispered, "Rest easy, Max. You were loved."